So rather than me get into some big expository, which I was starting to enjoy there, my apologies, that was the Earth 2 version. I'm going to open it up, ask me some questions, and we'll go from there. But one of the things I'd like to drive today is a necessary sort of maybe a website or application in which you or anybody in the city could go and access the councillor in their ward and say, is this councillor following maybe some of my ideas or some of my ideas? And I can tell you right now, it's a very cumbersome, unless you know that one person at City Hall, it's a very cumbersome way to find out how your councillor is voting. Now, it's great when certain groups come out and say during the budget, get involved and all that. I'm not necessarily a subscriber of that particular process because decisions, we're all human beings. We tend to make decisions far more early in the process than later in the process. So when it gets to the budget and there's the big hullabaloo and there's all the media attention onto it, pretty well councillors are already aligned in the way their thinking is. It's going to be hard to sway them. If you're going to sway, you've been doing that months ahead of time and you've been giving that particular council or their staff particular information to reinforce a certain idea and why that's important. So, going back to what I'm here and asking everybody to help out with is how can we make an app or a website or anything like that in which anybody in the city, even when it comes to voting time, can go and look at a councillor's record and say, that councillor said he was for the subway, but his voting record shows that he's for an LRT. Okay? And I can tell you from a person who lives in Scarborough and ran in Scarborough, that's a very important issue out there because I can tell you, I got here almost just in time and it took me an hour and a half, and that's all by public transit. Okay? So it's very hard for people in the suburbs to engage with people in the downtown if you've got that divide already. Okay? So as I said, I'm going to open it up to questions. Just throw it out to me like a U.S. Senate committee, and I'll do my best with answering those questions. Go for it.
So the only place where these records are kept is somewhere on some one person's computer in City Hall?
No, there is from my understanding, there is a database at the city. Somebody did create a website that Bianca showed me, but it's not the easiest thing to use to figure out, okay, how's my councillor in Ward, I'm just gonna throw out a ward number. In Ward 1, Rob Ford, what is his position on the homeless shelters? We can't do that. If you want to, as a citizen, there is one particular person at City Hall you can go to if you don't want anybody else to know and ask what this person's voting record is. And it might take her a while to get that information for you, but you'll get it. And then you'll know what the record is, or how many people know it.
Are the only performance indicators we have for city councillors, like sitting councillors when they're seeking re-election, their attendance record, which I hear a lot about, and their votes that they've made in council? Like, are there any other standards or benchmarks that we hold them to as a public?
I think we barely hold them to that.
Yeah.
I can tell you there's one particular councillor who's been there. He's Ward 44. I'm not going to say the name, but you guys can look it up. Has an atrocious attendance record, but keeps getting reelected because the people out in the area, they don't have time. They're gonna when it gets to voting, it's almost on the candidates, the people who are challenging the incumbent, to come up with the information. I'm going to tell you, the media is not going to help you, especially when you're running for council anywhere, maybe outside of the downtown core. They're not going to help you. You need to be able to provide that information. And I can tell you, for people who myself and other people I know who've run for municipal council, you don't have those kinds of resources. It's already a system stacked against. The system is stacked towards the incumbent, not towards the challenger. So challengers have to be on the ball way in advance and doing certain things to be able to get that momentum going. Not just momentum, but also having the resources to get certain information to say, okay, I'm going to challenge the incumbent on these particular things.
I think we worked on this at our hackathon last weekend. I was wondering if you've seen Councilmatic, and maybe have you seen another government do this as well?
And if you can repeat the question.
If Did everybody hear that?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry.
So I'm going to answer it, but why don't we do this? Sorry.
I think we worked on this at the hackathon last weekend. There is something called Councilmatic, and it's an archive or it's a website. That
We're working on it this week too. Like it kind of deals with some
Okay.
of the
So I'm going to jump in with you guys with that
you
because
should
I didn't
join
know about that because Bianca kind of asked me on the weekend to come out and speak today.
But maybe the second part of the question was, do you know of any sites or cities that are doing something that's good that we can take inspiration from?
No, I do not know of any
Okay.
cities. And
Councilmatic also exists in New York, Philadelphia, and Chicago.
It's very
I do also,
So
yeah, but what I was going to say, sorry. I have a loud voice, so I don't, so what I was going to say is I know that with, like, say, U.S. cities, council is done a little differently. Myself, I went to school in the United States and I got trained by the Democrats, and I saw how, from even the inside, the U.S. system with politics and getting the word out and all that, very vastly different from our own. So there probably is some similarities. I'm going to be honest and say I'm not 100% familiar, but I do also can say with certain certainty the structure of cities in the United States and how people run and all that is very different from how we do it here in the city.
You should
But
definitely join
I'm
our
going to jump in with you guys with that project because that's the first I'm hearing about it.
It's a week and a half old, so don't be
Yeah,
so
yeah,
But just don't hold it against me that I'm
Still
not
indie.
totally dialed in.
we got a Slack channel.
Try.
We got a Slack
Try.
channel.
Okay. Question.
Can you talk about some of the challenges inherent in the site that you're talking about? Like, is it only internally available, or like, what is the actual?
The site, well, this Bianca showed me a site, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the name. I actually have to pull up my computer and figure out where it is because I have it bookmarked. But I found just trying to use it, just Bianca telling me, here's where somebody three or 4 years ago created this, or it was through a hackathon. I found it, I'm still lost as to how to get the appropriate information. Again, I know who to sort of contact at City Hall if I want to get a certain voting record, so it's easier for me to just email, and about a week later I get that information.
If all the information was available, what do you think would be most valuable to have on such a platform?
Okay, so here's my big thing is, challengers should be bringing up the issues of, did you know the incumbent did X? Now, if it's hard for a challenger to find that information unless you know who to talk to, how can the general public look at that and be able to say, does this pass the smell test? You know, are you making this up? I've never read about this before. I can tell you, for instance, the councillor I ran, we're on Rogers TV, and the question came up: are you pro subway or are you pro LRT? And I can tell you, since I knew Gus Harris, the last mayor of Scarborough, I've been pro subway. It wasn't for the RT project that was out there. And I can tell you, the guy that I was running against, he split back and forth several times. But when it came down to being out in the public and people now with the spotlights on, he's now claiming subway. He's not gone back to the way.
You've mentioned that you had some thoughts on citizen participation
Mm-hmm.
in the budget process as in later in the term. Any thoughts on like participatory budget projects or cities that have done it correctly, or are you a fan of those efforts, or do they seem kind of wrong-headed?
No, I think I'm a fan of it because we're human beings. I mean, I didn't know you guys came up with this website a week ago. So I mean, you want to engage as a figure that everybody's voted for, to have people come to you and say, hey, look, we came up with this. We want to work with you. And I'm very much a person who says, I don't know everything in the world. I want to have people who can come to me and feel that we can have a conversation, engage, and they can steer me. I didn't know that. Oh, we'll work with you, definitely. I see this as an improvement to the community, let's do it. I'm definitely not going to snow job you and say something like, oh, well, let me get my people, then we'll get back to you. I don't think that's the right way to work with people in the city, because if somebody's coming to you with a project, and I can tell you there's a project I did out in Scarborough, 3.5 years of my life. It didn't cost the taxpayers of the city of Toronto a dime. We got the NBA and the Toronto Raptors to sponsor a basketball court that was at my old public school. My old public school years ago had taken out the basketball court, so probably from the time I was about 12 years old, there was no basketball courts outside. And that remained until I was about 40 years old. And then the playground equipment was there when I was a student at that school. And I pushed for how do we get the playground equipment up to code. This is old, it's not even CSA standards, it's not safe for children to be playing on this old equipment. At the same time, there's nothing for the older kids, so they're gonna go do something else that you probably don't want them doing. What can we do? And I couldn't believe the amount of resistance, just from the certain counselors. Actually, I'm gonna be quite honest and tell you, Rob Ford actually helped me on this one. But I couldn't believe the amount of resistance, not only from certain counselors in my area, but also from city staff. There's almost this challenge of, how dare you tell me to do my job? Well, no, I'm not coming here to tell you to do your job. I'm telling you, you may not be aware that the community needs this, or that this might be a good improvement for everybody, and it makes your job easier. It's almost like, how can you keep coming here and telling me my job's going to be easier? So I'm going to tell you, there's already that barrier. Even I've incurred, I've encountered it myself, just going in and talking about certain things about the budget long beforehand. Craig.
And there's been discussion in the city's planning department around doing that civic engagement piece with actual planning. So instead of participant budgeting being what color of paint do you want on the walls of your apartment building, or what plants do you want in your park, it's what are actual structural things that are relevant that can tie private dollars to if they're trying to develop into the community. What are your thoughts on, is that a good idea? Is it a process that makes sense? And is my question clear?
You kind of lost me there. Okay, so what you're talking about?
The city
Yeah.
council will go and talk to.
Can everybody hear Craig?
Council will talk.
Council talks to bureaucrats will have some suggestions, the council will talk to the private sector, council sort of decide what happens. The idea behind the planning department's concept is, can we put that planning process in the hands of citizens? So whether the council facilitator, whether happening with this parallel conversation, whatever it is, communities are actually playing a direct role in figuring out what the appropriate infrastructure pieces are for their community. So it might be a park, but it might be something more substantial than that. And I don't know where the process is at, but it challenges the traditional role of counselor, might have expectations of the community that are not realistic. Just wondering what your thoughts are on that as a concept.
I've actually engaged with certain communities, like on the other side of the city, where they're trying to do this sort of community, working with the city, working with the bureaucrats. I don't know. Sometimes there seems to be this antagonism in some cases. In some cases, and this was told to me by a gentleman who just retired from the finance department at the city of Toronto. Sometimes the problem is closing the loop. You have these public consultations, these great ideas come in, everyone seems to be on board, everyone walks out and says, wow, I think I made a difference, and then you don't hear anything. There's no follow-through. And that seems to be one big problem with the city, is where's that follow-through? So, for instance, one time I had gone to, if you remember, Mayor Miller. He was very big on how can we improve the city parks. And there was a movement, and I know there's Steel Parks, which I'm a member of, that's been advocating how can we improve the parks. And again, it's like these great ideas get generated, and then you don't hear anything. So, yes, I agree with that, but the problem really is, engagement's great. It's how do we close that loop? How do we make sure everybody's informed? How does the public know that when I did this consultation and I came in and spent a good amount of my time coming to these events and discussing it, it seemed like everybody was on board, what happened? So that one I don't have an answer for, but maybe once I become counselor, I'll be able to answer that.